Welcome to Living Local with Frisbee Real Estate, where we connect neighbors, businesses, and stories because home is more than four walls. I'm your host, Ed Frisbee. Join me as we sit down with local business owners, community leaders, and neighbors to share what makes Western North Carolina such a wonderful place to live. Let's jump into today's conversation. Hey, thanks again for watching and or listening today. Our special guest is Mr. Jay Egolf. Normally I give people a title, but Jay is a man of many hats and many careers and journeys. So we're just going to talk to Jay and I hear about them. So Jay, thanks for taking time to talk with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll have some random questions for you, depending on what you answer.
Okay. It's funny because I was born in Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
And moved here when I was 2 in 72. Huh. My sister was born here in 73, and she lives in Portland.
Oh, that's funny.
So we've switched, but I've lived in Henderson County since 1972, and I attended public schools. I attended Bruce Drysdale in 1975 and went all the way through the public. Actually, it was the city school system at the time, Hendersonville, and then it merged, and we have one district now, and that's the county, Henderson County Public Schools. And, I just went to Chapel Hill and sold cars in Utah, and then came here and sold cars. And then I first got involved with the school board when Henderson High School was getting built. And it seemed to me that the county, it's different because it's funny because the county pays for the expenses, but the school board designs it, but doesn't pay for it. So you got two not competing, but you have to work things out because the school board designs it but doesn't pay for it. Huh. The county pays for it but doesn't design it. So you got to keep, and it was just, and I was like, you know what? I know people on the school board. I know people on the county commission. I mean, I can help with that because back then it seemed like they were having some trouble. But, everything worked out. But I got involved in the school board, and I served there for 6 years. And then from 2018 to 2024. And then I wanted to get involved with the county. I really enjoy serving, helping out with Henderson County, just living here I'm 55 now, so I've lived here for 53 years. And I really enjoy the county and the way it's growing, but I did have some concerns. And so I was encouraged to run in 24, and I did. And I won the primary, and then I was elected. And so now I've been serving for 2 years.
Serving as
county commissioner.
Gotcha. Yeah,
for District 5.
Got it.
Henderson County Commissioner for District 5. And I say District 5, and a lot of people get this confused. I do represent a district, but every person in the county, no matter what district you're in, can vote for me. So anything in the county is of concern for me. So if anybody ever has any, complaints or ideas or problems, let me know. I don't care if you're in my district or not.
What are things people typically will say to you or ask you, and what do y'all vote on or decide on for the county?
Well, like we have growth issues, and then stuff like, we're dealing right now, with the budget, of course, and we just passed that, but like sheriff's pay, and the county courthouse, which is, we now have, we're soon going to have, not soon, but soon we're going to have 3 courthouses. But, we're in the old courthouse, which is like around 1905, and that was on Main Street. And then we have the new courthouse, down on Grove Street. That's our second courthouse. Then we're going to have another courthouse right beside it. But that's one of the things that we have decided on. And of course, we don't always agree on things. But that's why there are 5 of us.
Yeah.
and you have a majority wins, 3-2.
Yep.
So, but that's that how the county is run, how the county spends money, your property taxes, how we sales taxes, just anything involving, the county zoning, ordinances, getting along with municipalities, because even though a municipality is still in the county, even though it's like I live in Laurel Park, I have a Laurel Park tax and I have a county tax.
Yep.
So I'm, and one of those people that are there's double taxation, but I have, it's great where I live. I think Laurel Park takes care of a lot of things that I'm grateful for, and the county takes care of a lot of things that I'm grateful for. So I go, we're a voice of the people. If I have a problem, I'll go to Laurel Park, and they'll say, well, we need help with the county for this, like trash pickup. They arrange that, but obviously it's with, the county's involved a little bit with that. So,
well, here's a rabbit trail for you. You said trash pickup. I moved here 10 years ago from Buncombe County.
mm-hmm.
In Buncombe County, you don't have a choice of trash. I appreciate that. In Henderson County, you get to choose who you're gonna pay to pick up your trash. And I like that.
That may or may not be true in Laurel Park.
We're out in the county, so,
right?
Yeah.
See, I'm not. Yes, I have.
Laurel Park may not be set up for that. So.
Well, they're not. They arrange your trash, and
Okay.
it's part of But
that's part of your taxes. You get it covered,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And I will also say this. I've only served for 2 years, so they're not even 2 years. They're even though I've lived here for a long time. I mean, I don't want anybody to ever think that I know everything, because I don't. And every day I try to learn more than I did the previous day. That's what they say, is it's worth getting out of bed if you learn something.
Yeah.
So I'm not. If people come up to you, Jay, I heard you on this podcast, and what you said was not correct. Well, there's a good chance of that. I try to do the best I can.
We all make
but I'm
mistakes.
not perfect, and I'm always trying to get better. So, yeah, let's talk about it. That's another thing that I think people, whether it's elected officials or neighbors, there's not a lot of communication. There is, but there could be more. I think a lot of problems, a lot of issues, if people would just sit down and talk, and I don't care, what nationality you are, or what color you are, or what language you speak, or what political party you represent. I just wish. I remember a time, back in the 70s when we used to. I mean, the whole neighborhood had their dogs, and they all just ran free, and everybody looked out for each other and helped with each other. And if you had a problem with somebody, you talked with them and you tried to work it out. And that's a time that I miss.
Yep.
But I think that
we've lost the art of being able to agree and still, or disagree and still be friends. So
well, and one thing that I've always said, serving on the school board for 6 years and now the county commission, I've said, look, I will sit down and talk with anybody, and I will do my best to understand where you're coming from. Even though I'm not in your shoes, I will try my hardest to pretend like I am in your shoes, and I'll understand. Now, I may not agree, and even though I understand, I may not agree, but at least I will try to understand and do my best to understand and help out where I can. But and I wouldn't expect you to agree with me on everything, but at least try to sit down and talk and understand where I'm coming from and that sort of thing. I think that's important.
Yep. So you made me curious when you mentioned Utah. What took you to Utah?
We had a car dealership in Hendersonville since '72. That's why we moved here, because we bought. Where the AutoZone is at the end of Main Street.
Yep.
That used to be where Bud Egolf Motors was back
right across the street.
Yeah.
From our office, huh?
Yeah. So that's where the dealership was. And I started out there
And that's your dad's name?
That's
Bud?
my grandfather's.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. I was third generation.
Huh, that's cool.
And I went down there when I was 13 and started washing cars, and So I washed cars. I worked in service, worked in parts, worked on Saturdays, worked in the summer. And then I went to school, like I said, in Chapel Hill. And then I worked at Al Smith Buick Dodge Mazda in Raleigh. And I worked there in service. And then when I graduated, there were 8 of us that stayed pretty close in high school and then in college, even though we went to different, schools. And we were all just like, we had a friend that lived in Salt Lake City, and we always went out there during breaks to ski. And we would stay free, and, it was just an inexpensive trip. So we always went out to Salt Lake City and skied snowbird and everything. That friend went to the University of Utah. And then when we all graduated, we just all said, you know what, let's just move out there. So we lived in this big house. It was 8 of us. And I was like, yeah, I need to get a job. And so I went to, I filled out this nice resume, and I went to all these people, and they were like, do you have any experience? And I said, no, because it was in sales. I didn't have any experience selling cars. Do you have any experience in sales? No, we're not interested. Do you have any experience? No, we're not interested. Do you have any experience? No, we're not. Do you have any experience? No, you're just the person we're looking for. I said, great. So I went through training for 5 days. And then on Saturday, we were all sitting. This is at John Meekum. It used to be Hayes Brothers, but it was John Meekum, Buick Jeep Eagle, and that's when Eagle was still around. But anyway, I guess it was just Buick Jeep. But anyway, we were all sitting around, and this guy pulled up on the lot at the very end, and 3 of us jumped up, and because it was an open floor then, so you could go to, and all these people. And then I remember Rita Harrington. She said, "Go ahead, new boy. Let's just see what you got." And I said, "Okay, here we go." So I went out there and I started talking to him, and he's like, "I don't like this." And we had another lot out in West Valley, so we drove out to West Valley and showed him around. And he didn't like it. We're driving back, and I'm sitting sideways in this. They had suicide seats in this Chevy S10, and I'm sitting sideways. He's like, "You know what? I kind of like this truck." And I said, "Yeah, this is a nice truck, isn't it?" So we went back, and my very first up, I ended up selling him a car.
Huh.
I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can figure. So I sold out there for 5 years, and then came back here, and rest is history, I guess.
That's awesome.
It was great.
And quick history of Egolf Motors here in Hendersonville.
Well,
you mentioned that before we started recording.
Yeah, we
or Henderson County. So
we moved here, like I said, in '72, and we bought where the Auto Zone is at the end of Main Street, right in front of the Acoustic Trail. In fact, the parking lot, there's an old beat down parking lot right next to Acoustic Trail. That's where the mechanics used to park.
Oh wow!
And it's still there, and it brings back memories.
Huh.
And Ed Thomas's Gulf was where that mountain is, the triangle.
Yep.
They kind of landscaped.
Yeah.
And made an honor air, plaque there and everything.
Yep.
Well, that's where Ed Thomas's Gulf used to be, and he used to have rattlesnakes there that he got from out west, and that's where we always got gas for Egolf Motors. And
wow.
But so we had that store from '72 to '85, and then Dad bought our location on Duncan Hill Road. And then we had Dodge at the end of Main Street, and we had Chrysler Jeep out on Duncan Hill, and then everything was going fine. And then, like in 2003, we bought the Brevard Chrysler store, and I remember this was in Brevard, and I remember sitting down at this. I mean, it is a strip mall right across from where the Ford store is located now, but it was a strip mall. And we had plants, and it was such an old building, and we didn't own it, so you couldn't really spend a whole lot of money on it because you'd be wasting money. But the roof leaked. So I remember moving plants all around to catch the drips that were coming down so it wouldn't drip on the carpet. And I remember looking across the street over at the Ford store, and I was like, it'd be so nice if we lived up, if we worked up there and everything. Well, lo and behold, in 2008, when the economy was crashing and everybody was talking about going into recession and everything, the owner came to Dad and said, man, you got a month. If you want to buy this store, you have to do it now because I'm shutting it down in a month.
Wow.
I'm going under. And so Dad knew some people in Chrysler, and he knew some people in Ford, and Ford wanted to keep it open, and we bought it in '08, and then we moved Chrysler over with the Ford store where they're currently located. And that was you didn't know, you woke up every day back in '08, not sure. I mean, that's when, Boyd had the GM store out there where there's a school now right next to the cemetery on 64. But you didn't know what was going to happen. And then Chrysler was in bankruptcy, and General Motors was in bankruptcy, and Ford stock was at 3. It was just a terrible time. But, and then we survived and everything was great. And then in 13, Dad was like, you know what, I'm going to hang it up. And I said, okay, fine. He's like, which would you like to, buy from me, and where would you like to work? And I said, I like the Brevard store because it's got Ford. Got Ford and Chrysler. He said, okay. So he sold Duncan Hill Road back in 13, the location on Duncan Hill. And then I started working out in Brevard till about, 24. And then I was like, Dad was 82. And I was like, man, I don't, you've bought Ford, you've bought Chrysler, and we even, from a short time, even had a Mitsubishi store out on Spartanburg Highway where Carvana is now. Mm-hmm. And we Carvana, we own that building, and Carvana pays us rent. But we used to sell Mitsubishi there, and Dad did that. And then, I was like, Dad, I don't have any experience buying or selling stores, and you're 82. I don't know where you'll be in 5 years. And so there's this guy that had been calling our store since 17, and was always like, hey, Merry Christmas. How are you? Oh, great. How are you? Great. Have you ever thought about selling your store? And I was like, yeah, but I don't think so. Well, so I was like, Dad, this guy keeps calling me for 7 years. How about if I call him up and ask if he's still interested? And Dad said, go ahead. So I called him up. I said, are you still interested? And he said, you betcha. And I was like, okay. And 9 months later,
wow,
we sold Brevard.
And
with Dad's help.
Where's that guy? Does he live local or out of town?
Well, he was in Atlanta.
Okay.
And now he and his partner run it, Mahon Jeep, Chrysler Jeep, Ford Chrysler Jeep, Dodge Ram out in Brevard. And so now, excuse me.
Do you find that that's happening more with car dealerships? Like, are there still smaller locally owned stores that are more regional?
That's getting certainly less and less.
Yeah, I would think
and
so.
That's what a little bit I was afraid of, but I didn't have a son that wanted to take over. I didn't have a daughter that wanted to take over. My son's up in Pittsburgh now, and he's happily married, and my daughter is doing well in South Carolina, nursing school at South Carolina. And then our youngest daughter is a sophomore at Hendersonville, and she wants to get involved in maybe education. So I think I didn't really have anyone that was going to follow along, but, of course, I'm helping Charlotte, being on school board and being such a fan of kids and education. I would love for her to follow that, but I didn't have anybody that was going to take over. So I was just like, we gotta figure something out. So we did. And so, but I'm glad, because now, I do have a second job, and before I came in here to sit down with you, Ed, I was on the phone with a constituent talking about an issue, in part of the county. And now I have a whole lot more time to dedicate and I think to properly do my job. And, I love it. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, but I want to ask you, if you eat out.
Well, you're probably going to ask a question, but I will say this. I have celiac.
Oh, yeah.
So
your choices are limited.
Well, they are and they're not, but it's just like every place you go, you have to say, are the fries, are they in their own? You have to worry about cross-contamination.
Yep.
Like if you use butter, do you use the same knife that you use or the same butter stick that you use? I mean, it's just such a hassle. So, I go to, and I don't mean to promote anybody, but it's just what I found. And I would certainly like more choices. And I know there are out there, but like, Jimmy John's does a good job with their lettuce wraps, and Chick-fil-A does a good job because they have their own fryer for their fries. They don't, McDonald's has their own fryer. Those are the questions that I have to ask. But any seasoning, it's just, so I don't eat out, which is good. It's, it's healthy. I just finished. It's funny. I know you're running out of time, so I don't mean to go over. But Jerry Smith, who's running for mayor, called me up and he said, "You want to sit down and have breakfast at Arabella's?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, here we go." I said, "Sure." So I'll sit down anywhere with anybody at any time. But I was just like, I don't know if I can eat there. Well, they do a great job. They're like, we know all about gluten. And so I had a great breakfast at Arabella's this morning on Main Street. Huh. So, and we're getting better with that kind of menu because I don't know why, but more people seem to have it.
Well, from the outside looking in, we have family that have celiacs and friends, but that seems like a whole nother level than just trying to be gluten-free, right? Because you get sick.
Well, a lot of people say they're gluten-free thinking gluten is fat or it's a diet or it's a fad or but you know what? When I eat, I'm not even the worst. Some people break out and get sick and can't function. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite like that. I have about an hour, then I have to figure it out. So if I get little signs that my body's not liking what I just ate, and so I'm blessed that.
Do you have meds you take?
Excuse me?
You have meds you take if that happens, or you?
No, there's nothing you take.
Okay.
I haven't even heard of that.
You have to let it go through you.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah. So anyway, but usually, I like to eat out and I like to try new things, but it's just very hard. I have to be very careful.
Gotcha.
And I don't eat if I know I'm going somewhere where I'm going to have to speak or I'm going to have to go to a long meeting or I'm going to, but anyway.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
All right, last question. People come to visit.
Yes.
Do you recommend any places you got to go check this out, as far as out and about, outdoors, indoors, places you got to see in the area for somebody coming to visit?
Well, a lot of the places, I know someone's going to be listening, say, mention this. But, I like, outdoor things. Yep. I like, I like going up to Pisgah, but that's not in our
close
county. But even like going out to Sandburg for a hike, going to jump off rock in Laurel Park, watching a sunset up in Laurel Park, parking on Main Street and walking up and down and seeing shops.
Nobody's ever said that.
I really enjoy the diversity of this county and heading out 64 East, and I'll say this quick. I talked to my wife and I said this is on a Saturday, and I said, Jen, let's go farming tomorrow. And she was like, farming? What does that mean? I was like, you know what? That means we're just going to go tomorrow and we're going to go see some farms. And we did. And we went out 64 and we went to, see some apples, and we went to some stores and there's a lot of things. I would encourage people to do that and just experience. I'm not going to name a specific place because there are a lot of
lots of good choices. Yep.
Yes, but buy your produce in the county and support your local farmers. because there's a lot of food. Your farmers markets, there are like 5 of them. Go there, and that supports local. But head out 64 East and do a corn maze, and visit an apple farm, and we're like the second producing tomato in the state.
No, I didn't.
And
know that.
nobody knows that. I think that's right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure I am. But anyway, we're up there with tomatoes. You can get a lot of your fruits and vegetables locally and support our local economy and support our local farmers. That's one thing I would sure want to do. And a lot of people do that in the fall, when the leaves change. I mean, they go out 64 East and they experience all the farms and the harvest season. But yeah, this county's great. It's a great place to be.
Yep. I agree. We love living here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
For a while, we thought this was a stopping place, but we realized this is where we want to dig deeper roots. So
it's funny, I asked for people's numbers and giving out my information, and I say, "What's your phone number?" And they a lot of times they tell me 828, but sometimes there'll be a constituent that comes up to me and says, I have a problem. My neighbor, and I'm like, "Okay, what's your number?" And they say, "Oh, it's 674," and I'm like, but I'm thinking, like, and how long have you lived here? Just curious. And they're like, 2 years. And so then I'm like, and I don't have any problem with people that are moved here 2 years ago or whatever, but we do have to all get along. But what we can't do is move here and then shut the door behind us.
Yeah,
because we need to take care of everybody and work with everybody and talk with everybody, but we can't just, shut everything down and shut out. Parts of the county need to grow and do well, and other parts of the county needs to just stay the same.
Yeah.
And stay rural and stay. That's what attracts people to this county.
Yep, you're right.
It's cool.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes,
very
sir.
Much. Should I ask?
You can. About?
Do you want to leave people a way to contact you? Is there an email address or phone number if they
have
questions or concerns?
I have a county number, but I don't even know it. But I do have a county number. But
we can put it on later if you.
Yes, I'm going to give you that, but I'm also going to give you my personal cell number.
Oh, well.
It's 828-243-3969.
Okay.
That's
brave.
And Jay Egolf, JAYEGOLF at HendersonCountyNC.gov, HendersonCountyNC.gov. But one thing that I do, I'm not on social media because, I say I don't have time for that, but I really don't. But I don't like it how people sometimes are keyboard warriors and they'll say anything online and on social media pages. But when I say, I heard you say this, why don't you give me a call and we'll talk about it? Nobody ever does that. And if you're going to be the type of person that just sits back and writes on a social media page, but won't give me a call to talk about it, there's nothing I can. I'm not gonna fight my battles on the internet. And it was funny, and I'll leave you with because I'm taking up too much of your time. But I have my phone number on my business cards at work, and my personal cell number, and all these people would say all the time, "Why do you have your personal cell phone on your business cards? They're gonna blow it up. You're never gonna get any rest." And I said, you know what? That's probably true. But if we're doing something wrong, I want to know about it. I mean, I don't want them to gripe and then just take their business elsewhere and tell their friends about it and I don't even know about it. At least tell me if we're doing something wrong and let me try to fix it. And if you have a praise, let me know. Let me know if we're doing something right. Well, you know what? I probably in 20 years, I can count on my hands the number of people that called.
Wow.
I think they appreciated that. And actually I got more praises than complaints. And so I'm not afraid of people calling me, because but what I don't have any patience for people that just get on whatever, Facebook or Instagram or wherever and complain.
Yep.
Call me up. Let's try to do something about it. Let's talk about it. Just like what I said at the very beginning, let's communicate.
Yep. That's good.
Yes, sir.
That's old school.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to.
It's the way it should be.
Well, I'm just not that good at the internet. I always ask my wife, how do I do this? It's funny. She sits there and I respond back to an email or a text, and she's like, Jay, look what you wrote. Let me. So she helps me out sometimes. It's funny.
We need our wives.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you again, Jay, for taking time.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it very much. And as always, thank you for watching and or listening, and keep living local.
Thanks for joining us on Living Local with Frisbee Real Estate. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with a friend. To learn more about Frisbee Real Estate, your lifelong home resource, visit frisbeerealestate.com. Until next time, keep living local.